I'm currently testing the Dell G7 gaming laptop with the top-end configuration, so with overclockable i9 CPU. With powerful specs like this, just how hot does it get? Let's get into some thermal testing and find out. As mentioned, this laptop has the i9 8950 HK CPU, Intel's top-end mobile chip at the moment, so I'm expecting it to get quite hot once overclocked. It's also got NVIDIA 1060 Max-Q graphics, the highest configuration of G7 available, so expect different results with the lower-end models with i5 or i7 CPU, or with 1050 or 1050 Ti graphics. Thermal testing was completed with an ambient room temperature of 18 degrees Celsius. It's cold here at the moment as it's winter in Australia, so expect warmer temperatures in a warmer environment. At idle, both the CPU and GPU were on the warmer side in the mid-40s. While playing PUBG at default settings, the temperatures rise as shown by the green bar, and they're not too hot. If we apply a minus 0.150 volt undervolt to the CPU, the temperatures drop back a bit, as shown in yellow, and we'll see how this affected clock speeds in the next graph. Overclocking the CPU and GPU in orange and red didn't really change the temperatures in this game. We'll see why soon. The full load stress test was tested with AIDA64 and the Heaven benchmark running at the same time, with the fans running at default speeds. I wasn't able to max out the fans manually, so I haven't tested that. In all of the stress tests, power limit throttling was present. Even with the undervolting applied, the CPU and GPU temperatures stayed around the same. However, the clock speeds do change while undervolted. These are the average clock speeds for the same temperatures just shown. We can see why the temperatures just shown didn't really change with the CPU overclock applied. We're not actually increasing the CPU clock speeds while overclocked, and this was due to the power limit throttling which was taking place in all of the tests, and is why we never reached the full 4.3 GHz all-core turbo speed of the i9 8950HK CPU for extended periods. Undervolting did help improve this a little, but as the stock boost speeds aren't being hit, we had no chance of seeing our overclock being reached. The overclock and higher boost speeds will be more useful in different workloads, for instance in single-core applications. But when fully maxed out, or even while playing PUBG, we weren't really seeing notable differences. But it will vary between workload. So how does this performance boost actually translate in games? In the games tested, the exact same Windows update, game updates, and NVIDIA drivers were installed, so there shouldn't be any changes other than the CPU undervolting and overclocking. The same minus 0.150 volt undervolt to the CPU was applied, and for the overclock, all cores were set to 5 GHz. As we saw earlier in multi-core workloads, we don't seem to hit it anyway due to power limit throttling. And the GPU was overclocked by 150 MHz on the core and 100 MHz on the memory. PUBG was tested using the replay feature, and at ultra settings, we're just seeing a little 5% boost to the average frame rates, and an 11% increase to the 1% lows. Far Cry 5 was tested using the built-in benchmark, and again, just a little increase in frame rates, around 5% of an improvement at ultra settings. Rainbow Six Siege was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and again at ultra settings there was around a 4% improvement to the average frame rates. So we're getting a little improvement, but nothing serious. Most of it seems to be due to the CPU undervolt and GPU overclock than the CPU overclock, as in some cases that wasn't really being utilized as discussed earlier. These are the clock speeds I got while just running CPU-only stress tests without any GPU load. Power limit throttling was always present in this test, even while undervolted, so applying the overclock essentially did nothing, as it was already power limited prior to overclocking. Intel XTU said it was sitting on a 45 watt TDP, and I wasn't able to change this by modifying the values in XTU, so I'm guessing it's defined at a lower level and can't be changed. At the start of the stress test, for the first 10 seconds or so, it was running with a 70 watt TDP at about 4.3 GHz on all cores at 90 degrees. So it seems like it can only handle short boosts before being power limit throttled, which by extension drops the temperatures. The laptop has a 180 watt power brick, so it makes me wonder if they're limiting it for some other reason. As for the most part, the temperatures are fairly under control. I've got some Cinebench CPU benchmarks here, and we can see that we get a nice boost in performance with the undervolt applied. As mentioned earlier, power limit throttling was present in all tests, even CPU-only stress tests such as this one. For the same reason, the overclock speeds under full load are never reached, so the overclock speeds don't differ much compared to without having them. But the single-core speeds do increase, as the overclock actually helps there. But when you consider the i7 8750H CPU can pass 1200 points in this test if there are no thermal or power limits, it makes me feel like the i9 isn't really helping much in multi-core tasks. But without testing the i7 G7, I can't say if this happens there too. Here are the GPU only clock speeds at stock, and with my 150MHz core overclock applied while running the Heaven benchmark, and we're seeing just a little improvement. As for the external temperatures where you'll actually be putting your hands, at idle the body of the laptop is sitting in the low 30s, fairly cool. While gaming, this increases to the low 40s in the middle and peaks to the mid 40s up towards the back. The stress test was a little higher, mid 40s in the center and higher 40s towards the back. Granted, you don't rest your hands at the back, so the hotter temperature isn't really an issue. Overall, I'd describe the keyboard as warm, but not uncomfortable. As for the fan noise produced by the laptop, I'll let you have a listen to some of these tests. At idle, it was completely silent, which probably explains the slightly warm idle temperatures, while gaming was just slightly quieter than full load, but even under full load it was noticeably quieter than most other gaming laptops I've tested. These differences in performance shown aren't hard and fast rules. There are different factors which will vary results, primarily the temperature you're running in, application of thermal paste, and even the specific hardware, which comes down to the silicon lottery. You may not be able to undervolt or overclock your hardware the same as me. It depends on your chip and its specific power requirements. So don't just blindly copy my settings, and do some testing to find out where your stable point is for best results. While you could probably improve the temperatures by swapping out the thermal paste, based on my results here it's not really required. We're running cool enough due to the power limit throttling that was taking place. But in any case, this isn't something that I can test within a review unit anyway. The laptop needs to work the same for the next person to receive it. If I go ahead and remove the stock thermal paste and replace my own, I can't put the old paste back, so the next reviewer would experience something different from what you'd actually see with the product, and unknowingly report incorrect information due to what I've done. Undervolting, on the other hand, isn't physically intrusive, and as we've seen, it did improve the performance and temperatures in this particular unit with no downside once you've got a stable undervolt. It's a great way to get back some performance if you're running too hot or facing power limit throttling like we were here. Let me know how much of a performance boost you've found by undervolting your hardware, and what you thought of the improvements here. And don't forget to subscribe for the full review of the Dell G7 gaming laptop, as well as future tech videos like this one.